All right, so we're going to talk about multiplying rationals. Multiplication is really fairly simple. All you really have to do with multiplication is simplify your rationals. Now, a couple of things that I want to point out here. You'll notice that in these particular problems, we have some plus signs, we have some minus signs, that sort of thing. What I want you to remember is that if it's included inside a parentheses, it stays inside the parentheses. You cannot separate this x and this -6. You can't separate this x and this 3. You can't separate this x and this 3. And since we do have a plus sign here, I'm going to go ahead and put a set of parentheses around that so that we remember we don't separate those two numbers. Okay, now what we're going to do when multiplying, remember when you multiply fractions, all you do is multiply straight across. So you'd multiply your numerators and you'd multiply your denominators by each other. Well, to just make life simple, since everything here is already written in factored form, which makes life nice and easy for us here, that means that everything is being multiplied by each other. So all I'm going to do is draw a line straight across. So I have x plus 3 times x minus 6. And in the denominator, I'm just going to put a little parentheses here around the 4. And let's go ahead with the 3. I have 4 times 3 times x plus 3. Alright, now the next step is to simply start simplifying. We're going to eliminate our factors. If you remember from the simplifying that we've been doing in class, this should be the easy part. So we find factors that they have in common in the numerator and in the denominator. Alright, so right here we have a factor of x plus 3. So what I want to do is I want to look in the denominator and see, do I have an x plus 3 in parentheses? Well, my goodness, looky here. What do we have? We have an x plus 3. So x plus 3 over x plus 3 is 1. So we can eliminate those. All right, next we have a 3. Do we have a 3 by itself on the bottom? Yes, we do. Let's eliminate those. Now I'm left with an x minus 6 in parentheses and a 4 in parentheses. I can't eliminate the x minus 6 because there's no x minus 6 in the denominator. I can't eliminate this 4 because there's no 4 or 2 or anything else in the numerator. So my solution for this particular problem is x minus 6 over 4. So that's all you're doing with your multiplication. You multiply straight across. You can't eliminate anything, you can't separate anything in parentheses. So like when you have x minus 6, you can't eliminate this x. It has to stay with this minus 6. They're connected because they're an entire factor. The whole thing here in parentheses is considered a factor, so you don't eliminate it. And so then after you've got everything factored, you start eliminating. If you have it in the top and the bottom, you can eliminate it. Again, top and the bottom, you can eliminate it. And then your solution is simply whatever you have left over. All right, so let's look at a problem that has not already been factored. All right, so if we look at this problem right here, you can see there are no factors really. This is technically a factor. So we can go ahead and put that in parentheses if we want to. But we need to start up here with this x squared minus 16. Now this is one of those special case quadratics, and when you factor this one, hopefully you remember, that's going to be x minus 4 times x plus 4. Okay, and again, I'm just going to bring down this 9 minus x because, again, it's a factor. Okay, so all I've done so far is factor this x squared minus 16. Now I'm going to go ahead and extend my fraction line here because I know I'm going to have to factor here. Factoring this quadratic, I know I'm going to have two sets of parentheses. What times what gives us x squared? X and x. What times what gives us negative 90 that we can add together to get 1? Okay, well, let's see. It's going to have to be, oh, I know. What about 10 and 9? If I do a positive 10 and a negative 9, 10 minus 9 gives me a positive 1 here, and 10 times negative 9 is going to give me my negative 90 that I need here. So I'm going to throw in here my 10 and my 9. And again, we said the 9 is going to be negative and the 10 is going to be positive. Okay, if you're not sure how I've factored that, rewind the video and watch that part again. It's real important to get your factoring correct, or you're not going to be able to do your eliminations correctly. All right, so now let's factor down here in the bottom. Okay, so what times what gives us x squared? X and x. What times what gives us 40 that adds up to 14? Now, you can always look here at the other one that you factored and get some clues. You see here we've got an x plus 10. Well, see, the purpose of all of these problems is to eliminate stuff. So odds are when you're factoring, you're going to have some common factors. Since I know that 9 is not a factor of 40, odds are this x plus 10 is going to be one of my factors for this problem as well. So I'm going to try it, which tells me 10 times 4 gives me 40, and 10 plus 4 gives me 14. Okay, so I've factored. Now, what I want to do is look to see what I have in common. All right, so I have an x minus 4 on top. I do not have any x minus 4s on the bottom. Let's go back, x plus 4. I have an x plus 4 on the bottom, so I'm going to eliminate that entire factor. Okay, now I have an x plus 10. Well, we've kind of already talked about that one. We have that factor and that factor. We can mark it out. Now I have an x minus 9 and a 9 minus x. Be careful here. Your signs are not the same. This has a negative 9. This has a positive 9. This has a negative x. This has a positive x. Now, what you can do here is one of those secret little tricks that you can do in mathematics. If I were to factor out a negative 1 from this parentheses, okay, factor out a negative 1, which means I'm going to change the signs to everything inside this parentheses and put a negative 1 out here, look at what I get. I get a negative 9 and a positive x. Negative 9, positive x. Now they match. This is one of those cool things you can kind of do. It's part of that magic math. Even though I tell you not to do magic math, this is kind of some magic math, okay? This is acceptable magic. And so this is good magic, right? So I can now eliminate these factors, and I'm left with negative 1. If you have a negative 1 in your denominator, oh, I'm sorry, I almost forgot. And an x minus 4 on top. Okay, so technically though, I don't like the way this is written, so we really want to write it correctly. You want to take this negative 1, throw it out front. This is your final solution. I about forgot all about that x minus 4 over there. I hope you didn't. You guys are younger brains. You don't forget things like I do. But so you end up with the negative sitting outside, x minus 4. Okay, so if any of that kind of blew your mind there, go back through and watch that video again.